Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's been a while. If you have not been here before, then welcome. My name is Danielle, and today I am talking to you about living in Dallas. If you are considering living in Dallas, then you are going to want to watch this video. This is Dart. I'm fostering him right now. He's a 10-month-old Schnauzer mix, and he loves to cuddle and be right next to me, so sorry, but I guess he has to be in this video. So I want to talk about different aspects of living in Dallas. I have been here since December and we moved into our apartment in January. So it's been about 6 months as it's June now. The date I'm making this is June 14th. So yeah, it's been about 6 months and I live in East Dallas, on the east side of downtown. I'm not going to tell you exactly where, the exact neighborhood or anything like that, just because, you know, I like to have my privacy. Let's start with finding an apartment in Dallas. I thought it would be a lot easier than it was. It was actually pretty challenging to find a decent apartment in a good price range. Coming from Los Angeles, everything was definitely a better deal, but not as good as we had expected. When you look online, they put the best apartment that's in the building with the lowest price. So it'll be like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, and then they'll say starting at and put the studio price. So it's a little bit deceiving when you're working with, when you're looking online and you're working with apartment locators. So that was the first thing. It definitely took us like a bit to find an apartment. I have multiple videos on apartment searching that I'll link, and you guys can take a look at those if you're looking for an apartment. So that was like the first challenge. We were also in a rush because we didn't have a place, so we were staying, you know, in Airbnbs and with a friend, and just trying to like hurry up and find a spot to live. The next thing I'll talk about is traffic. So traffic in Dallas is pretty expansive. Like I said, I'm close to downtown, but there's a lot of northern suburbs like Richardson, Farmers Branch, Plano, you know, that a lot of people live in, really popular areas to live. So from downtown to those areas is gonna take you anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes depending on traffic. And luckily for me, I work remotely, so I don't really have to deal with that on a daily basis. But if you're someone who has to commute to the office, I see that being a really big challenge, especially during rush hour. And coming from like Fort Worth to Dallas is usually half an hour, but if there's traffic, it can take up to an hour. It took me an hour one time. Coming back from Denver, going through Fort Worth and getting to Dallas took an hour. So the traffic here is really bad, and it seems like their solution, instead of putting more money into public transportation or better public transportation, which they do have public transportation, but it just isn't that great, and it takes you a really long time to get around if you take it. It's also more expensive than public transportation in LA. So the public transportation just takes a really long time, and it seems like their solution, instead of putting money into that, is expanding roads, expanding highways. There's construction going on outside the city for this kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, driving around Dallas is also just not that easy. I think that people are really aggressive drivers here. A lot of people drive really fast. There's a lot of accidents in Dallas, and it's actually quite scary how some people drive on the road. And this is me coming from LA and feeling like totally fine driving in LA. I think when I first got to California, you know, there were some things that I had to adjust to, but I also don't know the roads in Dallas, so of course that makes it harder when you just have to rely on Google Maps and you're getting used to the layout. But people here drive really crazy. Yeah, they really do. Okay, on that note, let's talk about the people here. So I think it's pretty clear to tell from, you know, a lot of my videos that I am pretty liberal. Texas as a whole, you know, is quite right wing, quite Republican. And of course, that's something that I knew coming here. But if you look on the maps, you can see that Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, and Houston are like blue islands within a red state. So, with that being said, there are, of course, a lot of people that are more right wing, more conservative. But then you're also going to find people within these cities that are that have the same values as you do, the same morals as you do. I've been meeting people that are more liberal and more democratic. So I would say that you're gonna, if that's something that's important to you, that you could definitely find that here. But just know that the state as a whole is quite conservative. Southern hospitality is certainly a thing here. Definitely when you go out, whether you go to a restaurant or you go to the post office or grocery store, people are just much more friendly than they were in Los Angeles. It's not unusual for me to talk to my neighbors, for me to say hey to people on the street, and start up a conversation. People are just much more willing to, I think, be kind. That Southern hospitality is kind of a stereotype, but it's a stereotype for a reason because it really does exist here and people are quite friendly and kind on a day-to-day basis. Let's talk about making friends in Dallas after, talking about people here. So what I've been doing is I have been going to some meetups. I think I've talked about Meetup in another video. You can go on meetup.com and make a free account and find groups for things like hiking or camping. There's not a lot of hiking here in Dallas. I'll get to that, but there is a group for hiking and camping, and they also do like dinners and potlucks. So I went to one of those. I went to another meetup just for like new people in Dallas, but the best way that I've found is actually Bumble BFF. I've made 3 friends so far, new friends, so it's not like I know them super well, but everyone that I've met with, which is those 3 people, they've all been very nice and kind, and I've met up with them multiple times. So I would say that Bumble BFF is actually a really good way to make friends here in Dallas, and then meet up secondary and finding people that have similar interests to you. So let's talk about the outdoors, since I just touched on that. The outdoors in Dallas is, I think, the thing that is lacking the most, especially coming from Los Angeles and having both the beach and the mountains. I love to snowboard, so obviously we don't have that here, and that for me is the biggest con, is that there are no mountains. There's no like really good place to hike. There's obviously no place to snowboard. I drove to Denver in March, which is quite a long drive. It's 12 hours. Just to be able to have access to the mountains and go snowboarding. I also went to Utah in February, besides the point, but I think that's the biggest con about Dallas so far, is just that there's not a lot of outdoor activities. The winter was pretty cold when we got here in December. It was just, I'll get into the weather more, but yeah, the outdoors, there's some trails. I've gone on the Katy Trail, which is nice, which goes through like uptown and kind of into downtown. And it does get very busy on the weekends. There's a lot of people. There's some trails, there's White Rock Lake, there's also Cedar Ridge Preserve, and we've been to all of those. So I feel like I've heard there's one in Plano that I haven't been to yet, so I do want to go there, but I think that I have visited most of the outdoor, like kind of nature spots in Dallas. There's another trail that goes through kind of near downtown. Well, it's not downtown, but it's near downtown, and you can see the skyline, but it's really not that nice. So coming from LA to Dallas and hoping for some outdoor kind of like nice activities, I think that you have to go kind of farther outside the city or take a day trip, which I haven't done yet. I do plan to do, so maybe I can update you then, but just that's something that is like lacking here for sure. The weather is A pro and a con, I suppose. I guess it depends on where you're coming from. Coming from Southern California, where every day is like 70, 80, you know, we get some 90, 100-degree days, but that's not very often. It's usually sunny. It's almost like perfect weather throughout the entire year. Dallas definitely does not have that. I was surprised when we got here in December, and it was quite cold. It snowed in December and January, and then there were also tornado watches and warnings. So like we were woken up in the middle of the night at, I don't know, it was like 4 a.m. or something like that by a tornado, you know, siren, and there was hail and ice and sleet and snow, and the weather is just kind of crazy. So you have that in the winter, and then you get maybe like a month of decent weather, and then it's hot AF, and I'm talking like 90 degrees regularly, and we're only in June. So it's something that you definitely need to adjust to. Taking care of the dog. I try to take him out earlier in the morning. Like we'll go out briefly in the middle of the day, and then like go out in the evening, like around 8 o'clock when it starts to cool down. I'd say the hottest part of the day is probably around 3 o'clock when it's like 90 degrees. So you need to adjust to that. So pairing that with the outdoor activities, if you're gonna be outside in Dallas, you either need to go at like 8 a.m. or you need to go at 8 p.m., which is sort of a bummer, and our pool is closed, which is like a whole nother thing that I won't get into. I think if you're moving here, you definitely need to have some where you can get in the water, like either a lake or a river or a pool. I have not made it through a Dallas summer yet, so we're gonna see come like July and August how this goes, and you know, we'll see if this is a long-term thing. If you are searching for a job in Dallas, which I was in January, I ended up getting a remote job, which is great, but there are a lot of jobs here. So I feel like since moving to Dallas, I had gotten a lot more interviews, which is interesting, than I had in the last few months of me living in LA. So there's definitely job opportunities here. It does seem like it would be easier to start your own business as well compared to Southern California, just because there's a little bit less competition. The retail rents are lower if you need a space and things like that, which is something that we've looked into. So certainly like job opportunities here are pretty good. Another aspect of Dallas that is a pro is there's a lot of diversity here in terms of race, ethnicity, culture. You know, you can find like different hubs and different groups, and you know, kind of, it's such a big city that you can find like your niche and your place to fit in. So that's another reason that we chose Dallas over Austin, because Dallas has a more diverse racial makeup. And then another great thing about Dallas is entertainment. So if you like sports, you know, there's different sports teams here and games you can go to. If you like music, which I love going to live concerts and things like that, there's pretty much like any band or rapper or, you know, just artist or musician, they're gonna either come through Dallas or Fort Worth. So you have access to a lot of shows and live music. Let me talk about like if you're buying a home, which is something that we've thought about. And of course, like Dallas is going to be a lot less expensive than Los Angeles. I do think that you kind of get what you pay for. Like if you want beaches and mountain, you're gonna not have that here. So LA is expensive for a reason, you know. Definitely if you were looking into buying a home, it's gonna be a lot more affordable here than it would be in Southern California. It's more affordable here than it is in Austin as well. So that's definitely a pro that Dallas has over other places. But I've heard from homeowners that they really do tax a lot. So you may think you're saving a bunch of money, which like if you compare to Southern California, you're definitely going to be saving. But if you compare to maybe some other states or cities, you might not save as much as you think you're going to, because although the actual mortgage is less expensive, then you're going to be paying quite a bit in property taxes. The tolls are something that certainly surprised me with taxes here, because even going to DFW airport, which is such a mess, I can't even begin to explain like the signage and how confusing and huge the DFW airport is. But if you're going to DFW airport, before you enter the airport area, you need to pay a toll. So that's something that really surprised me. There's a lot of tolls if you want to like avoid rush hour traffic and go into a like easy pass lane, fast HOA lane or whatever, like you have to pay a toll. It just depends. I feel like anywhere you live, there's huge pros and cons. So it depends on what is important to you. But I hope this video helps you guys, and if so, please give it a thumbs up, comment below, like if there's anything that I missed that you want to know about Dallas. I'll do my best to answer it within my 6 months of living here. It hasn't been that long, but I think that I've gotten like a pretty good taste for the city, and I can do another update later on. So thanks so much for watching. See you guys in the next one. Dart says bye.